Hi everybody, it is Kerrie here at the North East Autism Society. It's time for our pre-recorded video series. We are still involved with the wonderful Kieran Rose, who is doing his campaign #TakeTheMaskOff. And this is the third or the fourth week Kieran has joined us now, and we're going to be looking particularly at masking and diagnosis. So again, if you watch this video at a later date and you've got any questions or comments, then please get in touch. We would love to hear from you. So how are you doing, Kieran?
I'm okay. I'm good. That's my masking autistic answer. I won't give you the long version, but yeah, I'm okay.
So tell us a little bit about how's the campaign been going so far? Because I know you've had amazing coverage across not just the UK but worldwide, really.
Worldwide. Yeah, it's over three out of the 5 weeks that it's been running now. It's hit the top 100 Twitter hashtags. Which is incredible. And it's literally reached pretty much every country on the planet. We've had at least one or two people from every country, and obviously lots from other countries. And on Facebook, I mean, personally, my Facebook page has been absolutely swamped with messages and more than usual. But following the hashtag, there's been just so much engagement and so much involvement, and it's really frustrating as well, because a lot of Facebook groups that I'm in, I can see that there's posts, but I can't see the posts, and that really irritates me. So I've had to join loads of new, but that just means that people are talking about it where I can't see it as well, which is brilliant. And I was hoping to do, for the whole thing, I was hoping to do like a big master post, like try and get as many of the different blogs and things as possible. But I don't think I'm going to be able to do it, because there's just been that much. And even just following it on Twitter and Instagram, if you search on the hashtag, it just goes on and on and on. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of posts and tweets, and it's brilliant.
It's brilliant. So I suppose you've achieved what you set out to achieve, which was to start a very big global discussion about masking, which is so important, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think lots of people, it was never intended as a kind of an instruction or telling people that they have to do this, but lots of people have embraced it and have used it as an opportunity to start talking to their family and friends about it more, and to be more public about, even just online, but in the real world as well, kind of the real world, but outside of social media, they've started to talk about it more with their friends and family and things. And that's really what I wanted from it. I just wanted people to be able to talk to their family and friends and their colleagues and whatever, and to be able to just start enabling them to start asking them questions about themselves and things, and just to get that conversation going.
And I suppose how, because people will see you, as quite a confident gentleman coming across on all the screen here, but obviously, and I know from experience chatting to you, and you've said this, publicly, you mask a lot of the time anyway. So, in some respects, has it been quite difficult, because you speak about a lot of things that are very personal and sensitive to you? Has it been difficult for you in this campaign?
Yeah, not so much the talking about things that have happened to me, because I've written and talked about those kind of things a lot, but just being public, being a person that I'm not famous, I don't get reckoned, people don't come running over to me on the street and things like that, but I'll bump into someone in the supermarket that I don't know, and they'll start asking me questions, and it's kind of, and that's not an invasion thing, but it's kind of, I don't really know what to do with that kind of thing. And it's been really wearying as well, is that Hannah Molesworth, who is a brilliant advocate as well, who I work with to develop this, she's going through a really, really hard personal time at the moment. So she hasn't been involved as much as she would have liked to have been in the whole thing. So I've kind of been the face of the whole campaign as well, which has been a big responsibility. And and I'm used to that. I'm used to people seeing my face and hearing me talk and reading what I write. But I also have trouble accepting praise, real trouble accepting praise, which is a big autistic thing as well. So it's kind of, not wanting to have that attention, and not wanting to, and even that positive attention I struggle with a lot. It's very, very overwhelming. So it's been exhausting for me. Last week was burnout week, and I fully expect to enter some kind of burnout at the end of this once I stop. So I might disappear off of social media for a few weeks after this.
Well, you can disappear for a few weeks, Kieran, but then we've got, we're hoping to do a lot more videos, because I know the families, particularly that I work with, are, really keen to hear from you. So don't go too far away.
I won't, don't worry.
You can have a little bit of a break. We'll let you do that.
Thank you.
So this week we are talking particularly about diagnosis and masking. So could you just explain to some of our people that are watching, what is the link there? Why do the two go together?
There's kind of three stages. It depends what kind of age group you're sort of looking at. If you're looking at it from a child's point of view, from some, I don't know, probably 0 to 12, 13, 0 to teenager kind of thing. If you look at it from that avenue, then a lot of they will start to mask at an early age, as we've discussed in other videos. And so a lot of that point is the discussion that we had a few weeks ago about when you tell your children or when you sit down and talk to your children. There's an element of responsibility in there from the parent's point of view, because the child won't know that this is happening to them. They won't know that there's anything unusual. They might feel out of place, but that's when it's really up to the parents to kind of step in and talk to them about why they feel out of place, in order to create an environment, a safe environment for their child to be able to unmask at home firstly, and be able to talk through their feelings with their mum and their dad or whoever the family members, whatever. So, you know, autistic children will naturally start to mask if they don't feel they're in a safe environment. That's usually outside the home. So it's helping the child recognize when they don't feel safe, and to be able to talk to their parent about that, so they don't have to go into an environment where they do put this mask on. They do kind of have to feel the need to suppress what they're doing and how they're feeling. And then you move into teenagers. Often by the time teenagers are diagnosed, we're moving into kind of late diagnosis territory now. Often their diagnosis comes after probably quite a traumatic period. They might have struggled at school. They might even be at school anymore, or so they will have had traumas in their life, and they're usually at this point they're entering probably, or if they're not already, they're in burnout already. Usually that's afflicted their thing, and especially girls as well. That's when a lot of girls are late diagnosed, because they've had all this trouble going on in their lives and it's never been recognised as autism. So there comes a point there where it's not only knowing to help create an environment for the child to be able to unmask again, for them to feel safe, but it's recognizing all the points that have gone on in their lives where they've got to this stage. So masking, all the masking they've done in their lives, the traumas that they might have gone through in their lives, which not necessarily other people might recognize as traumas, and also the fact that they're in burnout. So it's being able to look back at their lives and seeing what's led them to this point, and how can we intervene at this point in order that doesn't continue. So that's where masking kind of fits in. Then if you move into late diagnosis as an adult, then this is really where it comes into play, because quite often when an adult gets diagnosed at a later stage in their life, the mask kind of falls off. At that point in their life, it's become second nature. It's that quite often they don't even realize that they're doing it. And there's and this comes from personal experience. This comes from talking to lots and lots of other autistic people. If you follow the hashtag, you'll see everyone's talking about the same things. That we as we start masking as a child, and as we go through life, like I said, it becomes second nature. We don't realize we're doing it anymore, and then we get a diagnosis. All the kind of things that have made us feel other or made us feel outcast throughout our lives fall into place, and the mask that we have, the mask that we've put on over our own skin, then starts to drop away, because we realize that's not us, and then we don't know what to do with that. So diagnosis as an adult, it's such a vulnerable time for an adult anyway. But then when you realize, you make this realization that your whole life has not been a lie, but you have been kind of deceiving yourself. You feel like you've been deceiving yourself your whole life, and you feel like you've been putting on this act your whole life. And then you realize that this is permission, that you don't have to do that anymore, which is very liberating, but you don't know who you are anymore. So it's kind of that conflict that you have there in between, you feeling able to be able to be yourself, but everybody in your life doesn't know who you yourself is. Everybody in your life has seen the masking, even partners, even children. They'll have seen their parent or their partner's masking. They will have seen the masked version of their partners. They won't see the real person that's been going on underneath, and all the problems that they've been having bubbling away all their lives.
Yeah, and I suppose that could be really difficult then, particularly with thinking of family members around that person, because that I imagine in some instances that could create some type of relationship issues, because and I've seen this later, people that have been diagnosed later on, sometimes when they get the diagnosis, people close to them kind of say, well, are you sure you're autistic, type thing. That can happen, I think, sometimes on the odd occasion, because actually you've managed all through life, and I've never really seen the autistic side of you, because you've covered up, haven't you, for all them years. I think for the family around, it must be quite difficult. and particularly obviously for the autistic person, but for the family to try and understand, and
Yeah.
they've probably got to unravel everything again, haven't they, in the head, which is
Yeah.
similar to what an autistic person does.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it also, there's a funny noise going on. Also, you've got the problem there as well that quite often after the diagnosis, the partners and the family will realise that the person isn't acting in the same way as they were before. You know, because the mask has come off to a degree, or even if it's just cracked or slipped a little bit, autistic traits that have been suppressed for years and years, decades and decades, that these people will never have seen before, will start to come through. So the accusation then comes that, you know, you've had this diagnosis, that's not how you acted before, why are you acting like this now? And that's really common as well. So it's such an important time for people who are in a supportive role of the autistic person to recognise that they haven't been lying to you their whole lives. That's not what's happening here at all. That they've had all these problems and all these things that they've suppressed, and they don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to correlate everything in their heads. So, you know, and they've been suppressing. They have no control over the fact that they're now not suppressing. It just feels right for them to, you know, they feel this liberation. It feels right to them to be able to get to the point where they can start stimming, or they can start choosing not to go to social events, or they can start backing out of social events. And you know, so, and then all of a sudden it must feel like from the outside looking in, as a major personality shift. And it is to a degree, but it's the real personality that's there, and they're still the same person. That's important to remember.
Yeah, and I suppose, do you think, so a lot of the adults that I've been involved with that get diagnoses later on, they've found that bridge between, you know, when the mask starts slipping and then starting to be themselves and accepting themselves for who they are, they find it really useful to be around other autistic people at that point, because they get it. That seems to be quite a useful thing to do for some people. Would you agree with that, Kieran?
Absolutely. It's so important for autistic people to be around other autistic people, not only because, you know, there's kind of, if you walk into a room full of autistic people as an autistic person, there's an automatic level of acceptance there. You walk into the room and you do not feel like you are being judged.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could walk into a room of non-autistic people, and even if those people are paying no attention to me whatsoever, I will feel like I'm being judged. And that's because I'm hiding who I am. I don't feel that I can walk into that room and be myself in that room without those other people stopping and staring and nudging and winking and pointing and making comments. So, and that does happen. So if you walk into a room full of autistic people, any behavior is kind of accepted. Yeah. You know, if you act in any way, it doesn't matter. Nobody cares. You know, that, you know, because I walk into a room and I'm Kieran and that's me, you know, and another autistic person will walk into the room and that's them, and that's how, because we all expect oddities and synchronicity and, you know, all those different unusual things. They're not unusual for us because we expect that those sorts of things will happen.
Yeah, and again, I see that in practice, particularly, you know, we run a lot of toddler groups, parent toddler groups that are specifically for children that are kind of going through the process or have a, you know, an official diagnosis, and you see the difference. And what parents tell us in them groups is actually the children can come in and they just can be themselves. So if they don't want to sit down at singing time, that's absolutely okay, because they might need to run around. And, you know, actually singing time, for example, for a lot of autistic children, it's absolutely hell on earth because it involves so much sensory overload stuff and demands. So I think I absolutely see that, where you get a group of people together and it's okay just to be themselves. And I think that is so empowering for families. And that's what they feed back to me. They say, you know, this is fabulous, because when we've been to mainstream groups, the pressure that we have to stop young Jimmy flapping or jumping or you know, ripping paper because he's getting something from the sensation of doing so, you know, I mean, we actively give the children what they need. So if a child wanted to rip paper, yes, we don't think it's acceptable to go around ripping other people's paper, but we would get a big ball pool and fill it with lots of crepe paper, and they get in and they play with it, and it gives them that sensation that they need. So it's about, I suppose, for us, that's certainly what we do. We create them opportunities where children, young people and adults can be themselves. And it's so important, isn't it? It really is.
It is. And I was thinking about this beforehand, because I was thinking about what we might talk about today. And such a big thing amongst growing up, children especially, for keeping the focus there, is that as a society, we praise compliance. You know, if someone behaves in a certain way, we tell them, well done for behaving like that. You know, you sat still, that's brilliant. You know, why is it brilliant? Why is sitting still brilliant? You know, no, you finished your work on time. That's amazing. Now, for an autistic child with executive function problems, if they can't finish their work on time, how much extra pressure is it if they know that other children around them are being praised for finishing their work on time? And then all of a sudden you get to the point where maybe just once you finish your work on time and you get praised for that, which is good, but then that level of expectation then is there for you to do it again and again and again and again. And it's where you kind of wander in then, I think, from a non-scientific perspective, you wander kind of into the PDA territory there, because I think a lot of that is extreme autistic anxiety. I think that's a lot of what that is representing. And a lot of kids that are diagnosed with, or thought to be, sorry, not diagnosed, but thought to be PDA is children who have been through they go through school, and their school's the biggest thing in most of these children's lives, and they've got to a point where their behavior is so terrible that school can't handle them, and and all of this, and a lot of it is anxiety based. A lot of it is what the school would see as challenging negative behavior, but then I look at it from the other point of view, is that a lot of challenging negative behavior also comes from the parents as well. And a lot of that is around compliance, around expectations, and if you are autistic and non-autistic behavior is being praised and autistic behavior is not being praised, what message are you getting there? That autism is negative. So you take that on yourself. You are negative, you are bad, you are broken, there's something wrong with you. And that's the message that you're getting from parents, you're getting from teachers, you're getting from all these aspects of society. And then, so that's masking. That's why we do it. And equally, the flip of that is that if you are not very good at masking, because not all autistic children or adults are exceptional at masking, some are exceptional, some are okay at masking. You will know, there's things that they do that you look at them and think, well, that's a bit odd. Why are they doing that? And there are some that can't mask at all. And if you're not very good at masking, what does society do then? It teaches you to fit in. It teaches you to conform. It teaches you how to mask. So whatever way, from an autistic perspective, whatever way you look at it, we can't win. If we mask, but we don't achieve what we're supposed to achieve, we're made to feel bad about ourselves. And if we don't mask, we're taught how to mask.
Are you still there, Kieran? Hello? Hi, can you hear me, Kieran?
I can.
Sorry, you went off there. Yeah, sorry, you were talking about conforming. Apologies, it just the internet went unstable. Sorry if you were listening.
That's okay, don't worry.
Yeah,
that rubbish NIAS internet.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I'm sitting in the cupboard. But what you've just said is really interesting, actually, because I'm particularly interested. One of the big things that I talk about is early intervention, particularly around little tiny people. So a 2-year-old, for example, wouldn't have the cognitive ability or the executive function skills to be able to mask at that point. They're too little. The brain is still developing, for example. So I suppose what we're saying is, if as parents we're trying to, and this isn't to blame parents at all, because parents are in a really difficult position, but if parents are trying so hard to stop the child from doing that autistic thing, whatever that might be, the flapping, the running, the refusal to sit at the table, and then from that very early age, when them neural pathways are developing in the brains, doing what it needs to do to get on with life, we're really causing a problem, I suppose, there, aren't we? Because if we think about the little people, early years, early intervention, we know that's where it's at, and if we can get little people earlier on enough, we can really support them in all areas of development. So I suppose there's a little piece of work there which is one of my frustrations, because post-diagnostic support for families is very sparse, as we know. So if a parent is feeling guilty already, or going through that process after diagnosis of feeling guilty and feeling anger and feeling upset and depression, all them feelings that we know happens for parents, and it's absolutely typical, and they're then maybe in a position, if they're not coming to terms with the diagnosis themselves, they're going to almost put that onto the child and try and fit them into being okay, whatever okay is. And then this is when these problems begin, isn't it? It seems like that's when the cycle starts.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I completely empathise how difficult it is for parents, especially for parents that are coming to this, and autism's not entered their head. They don't know anything about autism, and all of a sudden this is happening in front of them, and it's not normal for them. That's the thing, that, you know, all parents have an expectation that, you know, wrongly, all parents have an expectation that their child is going to be born perfect, they're going to grow up, they're going to have this wonderful life, and, you know, they're going to make millions of pounds, or they're going to marry a rich person, or whatever, you know. And we put all these things on our children before they're even conceived. We have all these expectations of what's going to happen, and half of it turns out to be rubbish. You know, nobody's life is really like that, and it's very few people, only very, very lucky people. And it's so, as a parent, as someone before or even a parent, you know, all parents should be thinking about the possibility that their child is going to be born, and there may be something that's not normal about their child. They might come out with a disease, they might come out with a disability, they might come out with whatever, you know. So that's always a bit of responsibility from parents before they've become parents, to sort of think about the possibility that this might happen in their lives. And then the next thing is also, I mean, obviously that's very easy to say with hindsight, and nobody thinks like that. With that, everyone's so excited about having a baby, they don't think about the possibility that something potentially negative or potentially different might happen. But then also, you know, their child is their child, especially if it's their first one and they've got nothing to compare it to whatsoever. You might have a non-autistic child and then an autistic child, and then it would be more apparent to you that there might be something different about the second child. But if you have the autistic child first, you're in a worse position because you've got nothing to relate to, you know. And then but all those things that lead to a diagnosis or lead to you seeking help, they're all big red flags all the way through. If you look back through your child's life prior to diagnosis, you've got the big red flag of, you know, you went to toddler group and the child might be charging around the toddler group and not wanting to play with anyone, or as a baby they might cry a lot and not want to be picked up or cuddled, but you don't know they're red flags until you start putting them all together. So I think for lots of parents, they blame themselves for missing all these things, but they can't blame themselves because they didn't know. No, you know, it's an impossible situation to be in. So I think a lot of what you're saying, pointing out there, is actually parents blaming themselves and getting cross with themselves, but then of course that reflects back onto the child as well, doesn't it? And then some parents then kind of double down and become more determined that their child is going to be normal, you know, and they will go to school and they will have friends and they will do things this way and they will reach, you know, they'll get their GCSEs and their A-levels and they'll get married and a great job, and that will be their life. And then that's pressure that they put on their child, and it's so sad, and it doesn't need to be like that. It really doesn't. But a lot of that is, again, what we've talked about before, this negativity that floats around autism and the negative connotations that go with it. And yes, there are autistic children and autistic adults that have really, really hard lives, but that isn't because they're autistic. That's because either nobody's recognised it, or they've got some co-occurring condition which is massively impacting on their autism, and the environment is impacting on that as well. And that's what's making their life hard. Autism by itself, if you were able to take autism and put it by itself, it's actually amazing. It's incredible. The way that our brains work, all of our brains work, is incredible. And it's all these other things that feed into this negativity, though. And obviously lots of people like to make money out of autism as well, and all of that, they feed the negativity, and it's just it's a horrible mess, really. And it's something that we're trying to, obviously you and I are trying to dig our way out of, and trying to help other people dig their way out of as well. And things don't have to be the way that they are. And masking is at the crux of all of this, because that's our reaction to a negative world.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you see in the future, Kieran, I know you've started a massive discussion around masking, you know, which has gone global, which is so exciting. But do you see change happening in the future? Do you see a time where people can just be themselves and, you know, be happy with who they are? Do you?
Yes. I don't think I'll be alive to see it. And I worry that my children won't be alive to see it either. I think it's a very, very, very far away, because this doesn't just apply to autistic people. This applies to everybody.
Absolutely, yeah. Everyone that's got a label stuck on them.
Yeah, we need to end up somehow in this kind of Star Trek utopia, don't we? Where everybody does, nobody cares what anybody else does or what they look like, or, you know, or how they think, or, you know. But in terms of autism, there are a lot of forces in play. You know, we're doing this masking campaign, and there are many individuals who are being positively affected by this, are learning from this, and will start to apply it to their kids, and will realise things that maybe that, you know, unwittingly they've been doing wrong, and that they can start doing right, and addressing things in different ways. And so there's many individuals that will happen to, but I'm really sad to say that there are millions more that will not see this or will not even listen to this. I mean, there was an article in the Mighty about the Take the Mask Off campaign, which is it's a online disability magazine. It's massive, and the reporter had mentioned behavioural therapies in the article about Take the Mask Off. And for anyone that doesn't know, behavioural therapy is basically a behavioural therapist will look at a behaviour and seek to change that behaviour through various different means. I won't go into the grim details about it, and there are many grim details about it, and other people might disagree. But from an autistic perspective, yes, there are. So anyway, so this article was in the Mighty, and there were probably, I haven't gone back to check lately, but by the last time I checked, there were about 400 comments on it. Some of them are really positive, you know, thank you for doing this, you know, really learning a lot. Most of them were comments from people who had put their children through behavioural therapy, or were supportive of behavioural therapy, or were behavioural therapists, basically ripping the whole thing to shreds because of this one sentence. So they'd missed the whole point of the article. Yeah. And had focused on this very one sentence. Now, how does this affect us? Lots of those comments were American. Behavioural therapy is huge in America. It's a huge multi-billion-dollar industry. It's all wrapped up in their insurance. You know, it's like if you have an autistic child in America, you won't get any support unless you agree to go through behavioural therapy, pretty much. How does it affect us in the UK? Well, it's starting to happen here as well.
It is, of course, yep.
It is. Positive behaviour support is used in, not only with autistic children, it's used in care homes up and down the country for elderly people, dementia patients, all sorts of different things. Applied behavioural analysis is starting to become, it's not as big in the north as it is in the south, but it's starting to creep its way out the country. And what that is basically, behavioural therapists will disagree with this, and people who have put their children through behavioural therapy will disagree with this. And this isn't a NIAS that reflect, I'm not going to speak for NIAS, this is me speaking for myself right now. Behavioural therapy teaches your child to be normal. It teaches your child that autistic behaviour is not acceptable. In positive ways sometimes they reinforce negative, you are punished for behaving in an autistic way. Sometimes it's positive reinforcement for not behaving in an autistic way. And it is basically, there is research going into it now, just very early research, because this is something that's been going on for 50, 60 years. Research now is only getting into this, and it is starting to show that what many autistic people have been saying, that it causes PTSD in autistic people. It causes problems later in life. And the problem is because it basically encourages an autistic child to mask. It encourages, and it forces autistic children through developmental stages that they're not ready for. You know, and I know, that autistic children develop very differently mentally and physically to non-autistic children. We go through, you know, it's all over the place. And there isn't a right, and the little red book or blue book or yellow book you get when you're a baby, and it has all these different lovely charts on. You know, if you put an autistic child, 10 autistic children in there, they'll be scattered all over the place in terms of when they meet milestones, you know, and it won't be the same as a non-autistic child. But going through these therapies forces the child to go through developmental stages that their brain is not ready for. So it's forcing masking already at a very early age. And then you go to school, and some special schools are applying positive behaviour support and ABA for now, and all of this. I don't know how we got onto this. This is a major tangent, but it's kind of related.
I think it's related. Keep going.
We were talking about compliance, weren't we? And that's the thing, praising compliance. So what a behavioural therapy will do, will praise the compliance. You know, little Johnny might have figured out how to tie his shoelaces, which is great, but it's the steps that how he's taught to tie his shoelaces through behavioural therapy. It's repetition, and
that's not good for anyone.
It's not good for anybody, no. when my son was diagnosed, he was going through his meltdowns. He would become very aggressive and he would self-harm. So again, I won't go into details because that's his kind of private life, and I wouldn't talk about too much into detail about what happens with him. But we were with CAMS and we were offered behavioural therapy through CAMS. And, you know, I didn't want to do it. Michelle, my wife, who didn't know anything about behavioural therapies at that point, we went to an induction training about it, and she thought it was absolutely amazing because, you know, it would teach Quinn how to socialise in school and how to do all these wonderful things. And, you know, and I came away from it, and no, he's not doing that. He's going to find his own way, and I'm going to support him to find his own way. So anyway, they gave us a 3-disc, and we watched there was a computer program to go with it, and it was basically hours and hours and hours of recognizing facial expressions, and
not good for anyone. Again,
good for anybody. But he would have been rewarded for recognizing facial expressions. That's how the thing would have played out. But there's no context there as well, you know. I might smile right now, and you might think I'm happy, but I could be smiling because I'm scared, because I'm anxious, because I'm afraid, because I might be smiling because I'm sad, and it could be an involuntary reaction, you know, or I might be frowning. And it's, you know, there's no context to any of this kind of stuff. And that's how we got into behavioural therapies, though, because a lot of this is about praising compliance. And as much as a behavioural therapist will tell you that it is not about normalising a child, it is about normalising a child if you are giving them the sub-context that their natural state is wrong or negative or bad in some way. Even if you're not using those words, you're framing it in a way that they are going to feel like that about themselves.
Absolutely. And I suppose it's about what that therapist believes is good behaviour and bad behaviour, isn't it, as well? So it's very open to interpretation. And
it is. It's arbitrary. A lot of it is arbitrary, isn't it? And that's kind of the thing. I was going to say this about the small children as well, like when they go to the diagnosis and parents are learning about their child being autistic and how they relate to the world. And it's a really good time for parents to question what they say, you know, like with the, you know, sit up straight while you're having your dinner. Why do they need to sit up straight? First of all, yes, it does aid digestion, but the parent that's saying that, I guarantee you, the parent that is saying that is not sitting bolt upright in a chair. You know, and it's, you know, look at me when I'm talking to you. How many parents talk to their children and stare at their phone at the same time? You know, so the rules that we are giving our children are rules that we don't like ourselves and don't follow ourselves half the time. So it's a really good time for parents to question what they do and say and think, why am I actually saying it? Am I just saying this because my parents said this to me? Or because society insists that I say that I act in a certain way and that they act in a certain way? It's sorry, I've really gone on my high horse.
No, it's fine, Kieran. No, this is brilliant. I'm sure people that are watching it will get a lot from it, and it may be that we do a completely separate video on this because people may comment and ask questions. But no, I think it's brilliant because it does link into what we're saying, because it's all about that compliance and that need to comply with society and rules and certain people's expectations of what's right and wrong and good and bad and all that stuff, isn't it? So it all links in perfectly. It's all but we are going to have to leave it there because we have spoke again for 45 minutes. So if people are listening, I know one of our people that was watching put it on the telly the other week because we went on for that long. So she took it off the laptop and put it on the TV, which I thought was brilliant, actually. So it's good. So folks, if you're watching this and you have questions, comments, please get in touch. Again, like I always say, because a lot of this topic that we're talking about is quite sensitive and can be quite emotional. If people do want to have a one-to-one conversation, then you can ring myself up at head office and we can have a chat. That's fine as well. I would really urge you all to please like and share the video because Kieran, you know, Kieran's campaign is doing amazing things. If you want to follow the hashtag, it's hashtag TakeTheMaskOff. Please get behind it and follow what you're doing, because you really are generating such a big discussion, Kieran, and it's fabulous. You're getting it out into the into the mainstream, which is where it needs to be, really. So you're doing a fab job, so well done. So folks, we are back next week. What are we doing next week, Kieran? Can you remember? I can never remember.
I can't remember. I got it wrong at the end of last week.
Can't remember.
It's about safely unmasking strategies to create an environment where your child or your adult can unmask.
Right, okay, brilliant. So please join us next week. Please like and share us, and we shall see you all very soon. Bye, folks. Bye. Bye.